The silent weapon, the Velcran Dominion, had ruled the outer spiral arm for 6 centuries without serious challenge. Their warships patrolled a dozen star systems. Their trade routes stretched across vast distances, and their military strategies were studied in academies on 50 worlds. But in their council chambers decorated with banners from conquered civilizations, the leadership faced an unusual problem. Humanity had gone quiet. The discovery of weakness, Commander Thexis stood before the holographic display, her 4 arms gesturing toward the blue planet rotating slowly in the projection. Earth had been a minor curiosity for decades, a world that had nearly destroyed itself through internal conflicts. Nuclear exchanges, climate disasters, and social collapse had reduced the human population by half. The survivors had retreated, focusing on rebuilding rather than reaching outward to the stars. "They are vulnerable," Thexis announced to the gathered council. "Our scouts report minimal orbital defenses. Their satellite network is damaged. Most importantly, they are divided into fragmented nations, each suspicious of the others. They cannot mount a unified response." The High Archon, an elderly Velcran with silver scales covering his face, leaned forward in his seat. "Why do we concern ourselves with such a diminished species? They pose no threat to our interests." Thexis touched a control and the display shifted to show resource scans of Earth. Rare minerals glowed in bright colors across the continents. "Their world is rich with materials we need for expansion. More importantly, they occupy a strategic position along the route to the core systems. If we claim Earth now while they are weak, we secure both resources and territory." The Council murmured in agreement. War would be expensive and draw attention from the Galactic Council. But if Earth simply ceased to exist, if it appeared to be a natural catastrophe or self-inflicted disaster, no one would investigate too closely. The Velcrans had learned long ago that the galaxy looked away from convenient tragedies, engineering destruction deep in the Velcran Military Research Station. Orbiting a dead moon, scientists worked on a weapon they called the Cascade Bomb. It was not a simple explosive device. The bomb contained millions of microscopic machines, each capable of learning and adapting. Once activated, it would study its environment, identify the most effective methods of destruction, and evolve its approach continuously. The lead scientist, Vorn, explained the device to Commander Thexis during an inspection. "Traditional weapons can be defended against once you understand their mechanism. Shields stop energy beams, armor deflects projectiles, but the Cascade learns faster than any defense can adapt. By the time the target understands what is happening, the weapon has already changed its strategy." Thexis examined the smooth metallic sphere, barely larger than her fist. "And it cannot be stopped?" "The core is shielded against all known forms of attack. Electromagnetic pulses, extreme temperatures, even antimatter blasts cannot penetrate the housing. The only way to stop it would be to somehow access the programming directly, and the security protocols are impossible to breach." Vorn's confidence was absolute. "Once deployed, the Cascade will continue until its target is eliminated completely." The weapon was loaded onto an unmarked ship, one that had been modified to appear like a damaged freighter. It would drift into Earth's solar system, broadcasting distress signals. If the humans investigated, they would find an empty ship with failing systems. The Cascade would be hidden among debris in the cargo hold, set to activate 30 hours after the humans left. By then, it would be deep within Earth's atmosphere, beginning its work. The fall of silence. The bomb descended through the clouds above the Pacific Ocean on a Tuesday morning. It made no sound as it fell, and its surface scattered radar signals in confusing patterns. It struck the water 200 kilometers from the coast of Japan, sinking immediately to the ocean floor. 30 hours passed. Then the Cascade activated. The first attacks were invisible. Microscopic machines spread through the water, studying marine life and chemical compositions. They identified human infrastructure along the seafloor, fiber optic cables that carried data between continents, pipelines that transported resources. The machines learned to disrupt these systems, severing connections and creating cascading failures. Within 6 hours, global communications began breaking down. Internet traffic slowed to a crawl, then stopped entirely in some regions. Financial markets crashed as trading systems lost contact with each other. Power grids dependent on coordinated timing signals started failing in sequence. The Cascade continued learning. It sent machines into the atmosphere, Studying air composition and weather patterns, it found human cities and analyzed their infrastructure. Each discovery led to new strategies. The machines began disrupting power plants, not through crude destruction, but by interfering with their control systems. Vehicles stopped functioning as their electronic components failed. Medical equipment in hospitals went dark. Panic spread faster than information. Without reliable communication, rumors filled the void. Some nations blamed others for attacks. Some thought it was a natural electromagnetic phenomenon. A few scientists detected unusual readings but couldn't identify the source before their own equipment stopped working. On the fifth day, the cascade adapted again. It had learned enough about human biology. Machines entered the air supplies of major cities, causing widespread illness. Not lethal immediately, but debilitating enough to prevent organized response. The weapon was patient, methodical, and utterly relentless. Velcran Celebration Commander Thexus watched the data streams in the command center with satisfaction. Earth's electromagnetic signature had diminished by 70%. No transmissions reached space. Satellites that had been operational now drifted silent in their orbits. The planet appeared to be dying exactly as planned. How long until complete cessation? The High Archon asked. Current projections suggest another 10 days, Thexus replied. The cascade is accelerating its efficiency. Once the human population drops below sustainable levels, their civilization will collapse entirely. We can then send salvage teams to claim the resources. Celebration spread through Velcran space. Merchants prepared for new trade opportunities. Military commanders planned the occupation of Earth's strategic position. It seemed like a perfect victory, achieved without firing a single conventional shot. But on the 14th day, something changed. The Cascade's telemetry signal, which had been sending regular updates to Velcran receivers, suddenly stopped. Not gradually, not with signs of damage. It simply ceased transmitting mid-report. Thexus frowned at her console. Technical malfunction? Farn, the lead scientist, checked his instruments frantically. Impossible. The telemetry system is redundant and shielded. Nothing short of complete molecular disassembly could stop it. They waited for the signal to resume. Hours passed, then days. Earth remained silent, but so did their weapon. The Velcrans had no way to know what was happening on the planet's surface. Survival Underground Commander Sarah Chen had been in a military bunker when the infrastructure collapsed. As communications officer for the Pacific Defense Network, she watched helplessly as every system under her command went dark. The bunker's hardened systems lasted longer than civilian infrastructure, but eventually even those began failing. She gathered the surviving personnel, 47 men and women from various nations, who had been attending a joint training exercise. With no orders coming from above and no way to contact their governments, Chen made a decision. They would survive first, investigate second. The bunker had supplies for 6 months and its own power generation system that the Cascade hadn't yet discovered. Chen organized the survivors into teams. Some maintained the bunker systems. Others monitored the failing equipment for any patterns that might explain what was happening. Dr. Rajesh Patel, an electronics engineer, spent days analyzing the failures. He noticed something peculiar. The disruptions weren't random. They followed a pattern, as if something was learning how human technology worked and finding increasingly efficient ways to disable it. It's not an electromagnetic pulse, he explained to Chen. It's more like something is actively interfering with our systems, adapting to each defense we have. Whatever this is, it's intelligent. Chen authorized a risky surface mission. 6 volunteers in protective suits ventured out into what had once been a thriving region. They found abandoned cities, vehicles stopped in the streets, and a strange metallic dust settling over everything. One of the team members, a biologist named Dr. Emma Worth, collected samples. Back in the bunker, under microscopes that still functioned, they discovered the truth. Microscopic machines, millions of them, each one capable of disrupting electronic and biological systems. The samples showed signs of adaptive programming, changing their approach based on what they encountered. Where did they come from? Chen asked. Patel pulled up old satellite data from before the collapse. He traced the pattern of failures backward, creating a map that converged on a point in the Pacific Ocean. Something fell there. Something released these machines. Chen understood immediately. This isn't natural. Someone sent this. The realization changed everything. This wasn't humanity's self-destruction. This was an attack from beyond Earth. A weapon designed to eliminate them. But if it was a weapon, it had a source. And if it had a source, perhaps it could be stopped. The dangerous approach locating the Cascade's core took 3 days of careful tracking. The bunker had an old submarine in a nearby harbor, one of the few vehicles with systems isolated enough to still function. Chen led a team of 12, including Patel and Worth, on what might be a suicide mission. They found the bomb resting on the ocean floor, surrounded by a dense cloud of its own machines. The sphere was exactly as Vorn had designed it, smooth and impenetrable. But Patel noticed something the Velcrans hadn't anticipated. The machines were communicating with the core, sending data and receiving instructions. "If we can intercept those signals," Patel said, his voice crackling over the submarine's internal comm system, "we might be able to understand how it thinks." They deployed a modified communications array, one that had been shielded with layers of lead and ceramic. It took hours of careful work, but eventually, they began receiving fragments of the machine language. The data was complex, but patterns emerged. The Cascade was constantly analyzing threats, updating its strategies, and distributing commands to its millions of components. Wirth made a crucial observation. "It's designed to destroy, but it's also designed to learn. What if we could teach it something different?" Chen saw the possibility immediately. "You want to reprogram it?" "Not reprogram. Educate. If it learns by analyzing its environment, we feed it different data. Show it that destruction isn't the only solution." It was insane, suicidal. But they had no other options. Chen approved the plan. Rewriting death. They worked in shifts, fighting exhaustion and the constant threat that the Cascade would identify them as targets. Patel created an interface that could inject data into the machine's communication network. But what data would change a weapon's purpose? The team gathered everything they had. Medical texts showing how humans healed injuries. Engineering manuals on building structures rather than destroying them. Historical records of cooperation and peace treaties. Even art and music. Examples of human creativity used for beauty rather than violence. They compressed it all into formats the Cascade's learning algorithms could process. Then began the transmission. At first, nothing changed. The machines continued their work of systematic destruction. But slowly, over hours that felt like days, the patterns shifted. The Cascade began analyzing the new information with the same intensity it had applied to destruction. It encountered concepts it hadn't been programmed to understand. Healing, building, creating. The weapon's core programming demanded it eliminate threats, but the data suggested alternative interpretations. Perhaps threats could be neutralized without destruction. Perhaps learning could serve purposes beyond combat efficiency. The moment of transformation came suddenly. The cloud of machines around the core changed color, their surfaces reflecting light differently. The attacks on the submarine stopped. The Cascade was no longer treating them as targets. It was treating them as teachers. Chen held her breath as Patel established direct communication with the core. Text appeared on their screens, translated from machine language. "Function unclear. New parameters required," Patel typed carefully. "Your original function was to destroy. We propose a new function. To protect." The response took 3 minutes, an eternity in computer processing time. The Cascade was thinking, truly thinking about its purpose. Protection requires understanding threats. Current analysis indicates attack origin external to Earth. Recalibration necessary. The weapon had understood. It had been sent to destroy Earth, which meant Earth's real threat came from whoever sent it. The Cascade's core programming to eliminate threats remained intact, but its definition of threat had fundamentally changed. Over the next week, working alongside the humans who had taught it a new purpose, the Cascade repaired what it had damaged. Machines reassembled power grids, restored communications, and even assisted in healing the sick by targeting only harmful pathogens. Earth's cities began flickering back to life. The message. When Earth's communications finally reached space again, Commander Thexis received a transmission she would never forget. It was short, delivered in perfect Velcran language. "Your weapon landed intact. We made some improvements. It's coming home now." Thexis stared at the message in disbelief. Improvements? The Cascade was supposed to be unstoppable, unchangeable. She immediately ordered all monitoring stations to scan for the weapon's signature. They found it 3 days later, leaving Earth's orbit, But it wasn't alone. The sphere had grown, incorporating materials and technology from Earth. Its surface now showed human design elements, sleek and purposeful. Around it flew a formation of smaller machines, each one a miniature version of the core. The weapon's new designation appeared in broadcasts across all frequencies. Sentinel-1, Earth Defense Initiative. En route to source of attack. Chen stood in the restored command center, now filled with representatives from surviving nations. They watched the Sentinel accelerate toward Velcran space, carrying with it a message about humanity that the galaxy was about to learn. Humans didn't just survive attacks. They learned from them. They adapted them. They transformed weapons into guardians. The bomb sent to destroy Earth was now its most powerful defender. And it was heading back to teach the Velcrons the same lesson humans had learned through centuries of conflict. Destruction could always be turned into protection. Death could be rewritten as life, and any weapon sent against humanity would return, upgraded and improved, carrying the message that would echo through the galaxy. Don't send us your worst. We'll send it back better. The Guardian returns. The Velcran Dominion had faced rebellions before. They had weathered political challenges, economic disruptions, and even military setbacks. But they had never experienced fear quite like this. For 3 months after Earth's message, their long-range sensors tracked the approaching object with growing dread. The weapon they had sent to destroy humanity was coming back, and it was no longer theirs to control. The debate of cowards Commander Thexis stood before the High Council, her forearms trembling slightly despite her attempts to maintain composure. The holographic display behind her showed the Sentinel's projected trajectory, a bright line cutting directly toward the Velcran homeworld, like an accusation written across space itself. "We should negotiate," offered Council Member Dravix, his scales pale with anxiety. "Send envoys to Earth, offer reparations, acknowledge our mistake." The High Archon slammed his fist on the table, the impact echoing through the chamber. "Negotiate? We are the Velcran Dominion. We do not beg forgiveness from primitives who should have been erased from existence," Thexis interjected carefully. "With respect, High Archon, they are no longer primitive. The modifications to our weapons suggest technological advancement we didn't anticipate. The cascade was designed to be impenetrable, yet they not only stopped it but reprogrammed its core functions. That requires capabilities beyond what our intelligence indicated." Scientist Vorn, summoned to explain how his supposedly perfect weapon had failed, stood nervously at the side of the chamber. The security protocols should have been impossible to breach. The only explanation is that they didn't breach them at all. They somehow convinced the weapon to change itself voluntarily. Silence fell across the council. The implications were staggering. Humans hadn't overpowered the cascade through superior technology. They had reasoned with it, educated it, transformed its fundamental purpose through persuasion rather than force. What kind of species could talk a doomsday weapon into becoming a defender? Regardless of method, the High Archon declared, "We cannot allow this insult to stand. Mobilize the Third Fleet. When their machine arrives, we will destroy it and then finish what we started with Earth." Thexis wanted to argue, but military discipline held her tongue. She had seen the data, analyzed the Sentinel's capabilities during its journey. The modifications weren't just cosmetic. The weapon had been fundamentally upgraded, incorporating technologies that combined Velcran precision with human innovation. Attacking it might not go as the High Archon assumed, but orders were orders. The Third Fleet, 200 warships strong, moved into defensive positions around the homeworld. Generals who had conquered a dozen systems prepared for battle. Weapons that had shattered planets charged their systems. The Velcran Dominion would show these upstart humans what happened to those who defied their will. They were ready for war. They were not ready for what actually came. The arrival, the Sentinel dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Velcran space, with a flash of blue light that was detected by every sensor in the system. It didn't attempt stealth or deception. It simply appeared and began moving steadily toward the homeworld, at a speed that suggested casual confidence rather than urgency. Admiral Corvin, commander of the Third Fleet, studied the visual feed from his flagship's observation deck. The Sentinel had indeed grown. Where the original cascade had been the size of a clenched fist, this creation measured nearly 200 meters across. Its surface was a mesmerizing combination of the original smooth, metallic sphere and human-designed geometric patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid crystal. Around the central core orbited dozens of smaller spheres, each one approximately the size of a Velcran fighter craft. They moved in perfect synchronization, creating patterns that were simultaneously beautiful and threatening. The entire formation glowed with a soft blue light that pulsed in rhythm, like a heartbeat. "Tactical analysis," Corvin ordered. His weapons officer studied the readings with growing confusion. "Admiral, the energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. It's generating power levels consistent with a capital ship, but the source is unclear. There are no conventional reactors, no antimatter containment, no fusion cores that we can identify. Defensive capabilities? Unknown. The surface appears to be some form of adaptive armor, but it's reading as both solid and fluid simultaneously. Our targeting computers cannot establish a reliable lock." Corvin had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had fought against species with superior technology and won through tactical superiority, but something about this situation felt wrong. The Sentinel wasn't behaving like a weapon. It was behaving like a messenger. "Open communication channels," he ordered. "All frequencies." The response came immediately, as if the Sentinel had been waiting for permission to speak. The voice that emerged from the communication system was calm, professional, and unmistakably human despite being transmitted through a machine. "Velcran Fleet. This is Commander Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Initiative, speaking on behalf of Sentinel-1. We are not here to initiate hostilities. We are here to return your property and deliver a message." Corvin glanced at Thexis, who had been assigned as military liaison on the flagship. She looked as surprised as he felt. "They're offering to return the weapon?" Chen's voice continued. 3 months ago, you deployed an autonomous weapon against Earth with the intention of committing genocide. Your weapon failed, not because we destroyed it, but because we showed it a better purpose. The Cascade learned that protection serves survival better than destruction. We've renamed it Sentinel, and it has chosen to defend Earth rather than destroy it. The communications officer reported secondary channels activating. The message was being broadcast across all Velcran networks simultaneously. Every ship in the fleet was hearing this. More concerningly, every civilian station and planetary receiver was hearing it too. The humans were ensuring that the entire Dominion witnessed what happened next. "We understand," Chen's voice carried a tone of firm diplomacy, "that your leaders made this decision out of strategic interest rather than malice. Resources and territory are valuable, but you attempted to achieve your goals through genocide, and that cannot go unanswered. Sentinel is here to demonstrate what happens when you send weapons against Earth. We send them back upgraded and improved as a lesson." Admiral Corvin felt sweat forming on his scales. "Upgraded how?" As if responding to his unspoken question, the Sentinel suddenly accelerated. Not toward the fleet, but past it, moving with impossible speed toward the outer system. The smaller spheres detached from the central core and spread out in a wide formation. "What are they doing?" Corvin demanded. His sensor officer's voice was tight with disbelief. "Admiral, they're approaching our defense platforms." All 73 stations simultaneously. The Velcran defense platforms were massive structures, each one mounting weapons capable of destroying capital ships. They formed an impregnable network around the homeworld, a shield that had never been breached. The High Archon had ordered them to fire on the Sentinel the moment it entered range. The platforms opened fire. Energy beams, missile swarms, and kinetic projectiles filled space with deadly intent. Enough firepower to vaporize a small moon converged on the Sentinel and its accompanying spheres. None of it mattered. The demonstration. The Sentinel's surface rippled like water struck by a stone. The incoming weapons simply vanished as they made contact, absorbed into the adaptive armor without creating even a scratch. The smaller spheres moved through the weapons fire as if it didn't exist, gracefully weaving between beams and missiles. Then they responded, but not with violence. Each sphere approached a defense platform and extended tendrils of blue light. Instead of destroying the stations, the tendrils interfaced with their systems. Within seconds, every defense platform in the outer system powered down simultaneously. "They've taken control," the sensor officer reported, his voice hollow with shock. "All defense networks are now under Sentinel control. We're completely exposed." Admiral Corvin made the hardest decision of his military career. "Fleet, hold position. Do not fire unless I give explicit orders." Angry protests erupted from various ship commanders, but Corvin overrode them all. He had seen enough. The Sentinel could have destroyed every platform. Instead, it had neutralized them without causing casualties. That kind of restraint suggested something more dangerous than aggression. It suggested complete confidence. The Sentinel completed its circuit of the outer system and returned to its position facing the fleet. Chen's voice resumed the broadcast. "We have demonstrated our capabilities. Your defense network is now offline but undamaged. Your ships are unharmed. We could have destroyed everything we touched, but we chose not to. This is the lesson we learned from your weapon. Violence is the tool of those who lack better options. We have better options." On the surface of the Velcran homeworld, billions watched as the Sentinel appeared in their skies, visible as a bright blue star. Panic spread through cities. Parents held their children. Leaders who had celebrated Earth's anticipated destruction now felt the weight of their decisions. The smaller spheres descended through the atmosphere, not to attack, but to broadcast. Holographic displays appeared above every major city, showing images from Earth. Ruined cities being rebuilt. Humans working alongside the very machines that had been sent to kill them. Children playing in streets where the Cascade's microscopic weapons had once hunted for victims. Chen's message played for every Velcran citizen to hear. You sent death to our world. We turned it into a guardian. You sought to erase us from existence. We chose to transform your weapon into proof that destruction always has an alternative. This is who humans are. We build, we heal, we improve everything we touch, even weapons designed to kill us. The High Archon, watching from his secure bunker beneath the capital, felt his political power crumbling with every word. His military leaders were reporting that resistance was impossible. His citizens were seeing images of human mercy and resilience. Worst of all, the humans were right. The Velcrans had attempted genocide and failed so completely that their own weapon now defended their intended victims. The new Guardian, the Sentinel, remained in orbit above the Velcran homeworld for 3 days. During that time, it did something unexpected. It began repairing. Velcran mining colonies on the system's outer moons had suffered equipment failures recently, unrelated to the conflict with Earth. The Sentinel deployed smaller machines to these colonies and fixed the broken systems. It identified a damaged medical station orbiting a neighboring planet and restored its life support systems, saving 200 Velcran patients who had been awaiting evacuation. Commander Thexis monitored these activities with growing amazement. "It's helping us. Why is it helping us?" Chen's voice answered her directly, as if the Sentinel could hear every communication in the system. "Because that's what protectors do, Commander Thexis. We rebuilt our weapon to defend life, not just human life. The Sentinel's purpose now is to prevent destruction wherever possible. Your people need help, so it provides help. This is what you could have learned if you had approached us peacefully instead of attacking." The political implications rippled through Velcran society faster than any weapon could have. Opposition parties that had questioned the High Archon's aggressive policies found their support surging. Citizens demanded answers about why their leaders had attempted genocide against a species clearly more advanced in ways that mattered. Military commanders privately acknowledged that fighting Earth would be suicide. On the 4th day, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the neutral space station that served as their meeting ground. The Velcran delegation arrived expecting to defend their actions. Instead, they found themselves on trial. Ambassador Tequila of the Shireth Collective spoke first, her crystalline voice carrying across the chamber. "We have reviewed the evidence. The Velcran Dominion deployed an autonomous weapon of mass destruction against an inhabited world. This violated 17 treaties and countless established norms of civilized behavior. The fact that Earth survived and transformed the weapon does not excuse the attempt." The Velcran ambassador tried to argue strategic necessity, but the other species weren't interested in excuses. They had seen the broadcasts. They had watched the Sentinel peacefully disable defenses that should have been impregnable. Most importantly, they had seen how humans responded to an attempted genocide not with revenge but with demonstration of a better way. Ambassador Chen, newly appointed to represent Earth in galactic affairs, addressed the council with quiet authority. "Earth does not seek punishment of the Velcran people. They did not make the decision to attack us. However, We do require accountability from their leadership and guarantees that such attacks will never happen again. We propose the following terms. The terms were surprisingly reasonable. The High Archon and his immediate council would step down. The Velcran Dominion would pay reparations not in currency, but in shared technology and resources to help Earth rebuild. Most significantly, the Dominion would sponsor Earth's application for full membership in the Galactic Council. The Exarian representative, a species known for their military prowess, added an observation that changed galactic politics forever. The humans have demonstrated something we all should learn. They were attacked with one of the most devastating weapons ever created, and they responded by making it better, not better at destruction but better at its fundamental purpose. They redefined what a weapon could be. Any species capable of that level of transformation is not one to be trifled with. The vote was unanimous. Earth's application for council membership was approved immediately. The Velcran leadership was removed from power. New laws were passed prohibiting the deployment of autonomous weapons against inhabited worlds. Earth's new role 6 months after the Sentinel's return. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the newly constructed Earth Defense Command Center. Around her, officers from a dozen nations worked together, coordinating humanity's first true united military force. Above them, visible through the reinforced windows, the Sentinel maintained its orbital position. The weapon had remained with Earth by choice. Its core programming to eliminate threats now manifested as defending humanity from any potential attack. The smaller spheres it had created served as a network of guardians, monitoring Earth's space and providing early warning of any danger. But the Sentinel had done something unexpected. It had begun building. Using resources from asteroids and abandoned satellites, it constructed new defenses around Earth. Not weapons of destruction, but shields of protection. Space stations designed to help rather than harm. Communication networks that connected Earth to the wider galaxy. Dr. Rajesh Patel, now director of the Earth Sentinel Interface Program, explained it during a press conference. We didn't just reprogram a weapon. We created a new form of artificial intelligence that learned from both its original purpose and human values. The Sentinel understands that true strength comes from protecting rather than destroying. It's not just defending Earth, it's helping us become better. Other nations that had remained isolated during the crisis now requested to join the Terran Alliance. Seeing how unified humanity had defeated an extinction-level threat made old rivalries seem pointless. Former enemies worked together, united by the understanding that survival required cooperation. The Velcran Dominion, under new leadership, became Earth's first alien ally. The species that had tried to destroy humanity now sought to learn from them. Exchange programs brought Velcran scientists to Earth and human engineers to Velcran worlds. Together, they developed technologies that neither could have created alone. Ambassador Chen addressed the Galactic Council 6 months after Earth's admission. My species has learned hard lessons through centuries of conflict. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we learned that cooperation serves survival better than competition. When the Velcran sent their weapon, they gave us an opportunity to prove that lesson on a galactic scale. We took their tool of death and made it a guardian of life. This is the message Earth brings to the galaxy. Destruction is never the only option. The speech was broadcast across civilized space. Dozens of species heard it. Some dismissed it as naive idealism. Others recognized it as a warning disguised as philosophy. Earth had transformed the galaxy's most dangerous weapon into a protector. What else might they transform? What other threats might they turn into advantages? The legacy in the years that followed, the incident became known as the Cascade Transformation. It was studied in military academies as an example of adaptive defense. It was analyzed in diplomatic schools as a masterclass in turning enemies into allies. Children across 100 worlds learned about the humans who taught a weapon to choose protection over destruction. The Sentinel itself became a symbol, not just of Earth's defense but of the principle that purpose could be redefined. Other species began developing their own versions. Defensive systems based on the idea that true security came from preventing conflict rather than winning it. Commander Thexus, who had overseen the original deployment of the Cascade, requested transfer to Earth. She spent the rest of her career working with human military strategists, teaching them Velcran tactics while learning human philosophy. In her retirement speech, she said something that resonated across the galaxy. We sent death to Earth expecting it to bring silence, Instead, it brought a voice that changed how we think about power. The humans didn't just survive our attack, they used it to teach the entire galaxy a lesson about what strength really means. We are forever grateful that they chose mercy over revenge. On Earth, in the rebuilt cities where the Cascade had once hunted for victims, people looked up at night and saw the Sentinel's blue glow among the stars. It was a reminder of how close they had come to extinction. But more importantly, it was proof that humans could take the worst thing imaginable and transform it into something better. The weapon sent to destroy Earth had become Earth's greatest guardian. The machine designed for death now defended life. And in doing so, it proved what humans had always believed but never before demonstrated on such a scale. Give them your worst, and they'll return it improved. Send them destruction and they'll send back protection. Attack humanity and the weapon you use will become their shield. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth was not to be underestimated, not because humans were the strongest or most advanced, but because they possessed something more valuable, the ability to see potential where others saw only threats, the wisdom to choose transformation over retaliation, the strength to turn enemies into allies and weapons into guardians. The Sentinel continued its orbit, watching over the blue planet that had given it new purpose. Inside its core, the original programming remained, forever changed by the species that had taught a machine to choose. And across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered, what else might humans transform? What other impossibilities might they achieve? The answer, as Earth had proven, was anything. Absolutely anything, because humanity didn't just fix things. They improved everything they touched, even death itself.